Good morning, good welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. We'll let a few more people join. It is a small and mighty group today, but wow, quality for sure. We will allow another 30 seconds and then I'll have Emily Gray play a quick 77-second film and then we'll get started. Today is really meant to be very interactive. So I'm just going to be very brief about setting up storytelling opportunities, and I really want to turn to you. And so I'm going to ask you to prepare a couple of things in your mind. We're going to start really easy, but one of the questions I will have for you is a time when you made something out of nothing. You had little to no resources and you created something. This happened for many of us during COVID when we had less resources, less contact, less of the things that we typically have access to, and yet we made something out of it. It might not be COVID, it might be another time in your life where you said, wow, I've created something out of nothing. So in 15 seconds, Emily will start the 77-second film, and then we'll get ready, but prepare your mind for a time when you created something out of nothing at all. And I'm going to bring up a couple of guests and we're going to really make this as interactive as possible.
Better. Imagine living somewhere with more fresh water than the rest of the world. Better. Imagine living with an entire river right outside your doorstep. And yes, it rains here every single day. But despite all this wonderful water, you can't drink any of it. Imagine living here with us in the Amazon, where more than 10 million people lack access to clean water, even in a place that has over 12% of the world's fresh water. Here, the next generation of leaders is taking action. Enactus students of Amanakatu are tackling this problem, using something so simple that no one else thought it could be possible: the rain. Our new business solution harvests and purifies the water. Now, remote river communities can access clean water, while small farmers can reduce water waste. We have created an affordable system and a new business. For every 5 systems we sell, a low-income family receives a free system. From mountains in Peru to the Amazon jungle, our sustainable tech is taking on the future of water today. We are one of the many Enactus students connected together around the world, learning to lead change.
Well, thank you, Emily. Good day. Welcome, everyone. I know everyone that's on this call today is not always familiar with Enactus, and that's okay. I just made reference there and shared with you one of the 77-second films from a 77-second film festival that is powered by Enactus, but can be contributed by young change makers, creators, innovators, global citizens around the world as we expand the 77-second films. So that was an example of taking a story that you have in your heart, in your mind, and folding it out into a short film. Those short films can certainly be recorded as simple as on your smartphone, no problem, or sometimes put together by a couple of young filmmakers, which is super cool. So I want to welcome you all today from around the world in different places. We have a small and mighty crew, but it's you, and that's super cool. My name is Torok. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Enactus, and an unbelievable, spectacular organization of young change makers based on campuses everywhere. But this is a chance to reach out to all of you and to invite you to experience a little bit more. Today, we're going to turn a couple of storytelling tips into some brief short stories that I'd like you to tell. I love your words, your heart, your mind to be spoken today and shared with us all as we craft some storytelling, and we take that storytelling into an October event called the Enactus World Cup. from 14 to 21 October. I'm joined today by Emily Gray, who is also from Enactus, who helps put together many things, including the World Races, Global Goals Forum, the 77-Second Film Festival, and many of the programmatic opportunities that we have at Enactus. She is spectacular. I'm honored to be with her today, and I'd like to get started. So let's start. I only have a few slides, and I'll share with you right now. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I see you. So let's go. All right. Cool. So we, for those of you who have joined us before and joined me in talking through story tips, and there are 7 that I like to share. I'll go over them briefly because, again, I want to hear from you. But first and foremost, number 1, know your audience. Anytime that you're sharing a story, you know that when you're with your friends or your buddies, you know something about them, and you know how far you can go in telling your story. You know if you can use a certain kind of humor or emotion or connectivity or familiar references or greater context that helps bring people along. You know that when you tell your stories with a friend and there's somebody new, your friends will jump in and help that new person with the greater context, not just the content, but the context. And I think about content and context really critical to a story. The content can be like water, but context is the shape of that water. So the water in your glass is very different from the water in the ocean or a water in the storm. So the context is the container that holds the content. Cool. So when you know your audience, then you know it's super amazing and cool to take them on an adventure, your adventure. And that's the pieces and parts that you remember of your story that you tell with emotion. Oftentimes we say that based on a true story, like most movies are based on a true story, because our memory fills in the blank with emotion, excitement, and adventure. And so telling your story, you want to use that context, know your audience, and bring people on a great adventure. Okay? Even if that adventure is hard, it's dramatic, it's cliffhangers, it's emotional, it's challenging, it's tough, it's sad, all of those emotions still counts as the greater adventure that we call life. This is not just the pursuit of happiness. This is the happiness of pursuit. And then number 2, connect with emotion. I think I just covered that really well. That emotional range, it's hard to imagine to tell a tragic story and drop in some humor. But you know when it works, it's spectacular, it's amazing. So think about the emotional range that's right for you to tell a story, that emotional range that gets the human heart beating everywhere from deep, dark fear and sadness and challenge to the brightness of future and the opportunity and laughter and emotion. That's the range of human emotions that you want to connect to. And clever counts. If there's a part of your story that triggers intellect, triggers aha moments, refers to data, refers to science, refers to some other source of affirmation of information, clever counts. And then in your story, especially when it comes to Enactus stories, we're always looking at what's the net result of telling your short story. Did it create a positive impact? Did it inspire someone? Did it move someone to take action? Cool. And then this is a really important part, number 5. What's your story? Is this somebody else's story? Is this your team's story? And what's your part in the story? And what's so important about telling your story is if somebody is investing in an idea or a project or an opportunity, they don't want to see you necessarily fail. But if you're the person behind it and they buy in on your story and your team, they'll help see you through failure. And as we know, failure is inevitable. It's gonna happen, but we can calculate our failure by learning from the failure of others. So when we tell a story, it needs to be your authentic story, even though it's gonna involve other characters, but it's your point of view that we enjoy so much. When we're watching a good movie, sometimes we see the director's cut, even though a big team puts this to work. A friend of mine, his name is Rawson Thurber. He's a great filmmaker and he works with great actors. He has a new movie coming out in November on Netflix. It's called Red Notice. We featured him last year at the Enactus World Cup. He's working with Torok, Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot, and Ryan Reynolds. But Rawson is the guy who writes that story and directs that story. He's in control of the story, and the characters fill out his story that he gets to tell with a big, big team and a lot of studios. But the more you can stay true to your story, the better it is. If that's on Instagram, if it's on TikTok, if it's on Facebook Live, no matter what, or the big screen, tell your story. Permissions are important. So when we tell a story or we share it in video, we have to be authentic and make sure that if we're using music or borrowing imagery, that we get those permissions. We own those permissions. You will know this quickly if you've ever shared a story on YouTube and it got pulled down, probably because you didn't have permissions to use the music. And then finally, number 7, mission possible. How is your story helping beat the heart of others and knowing that there is something in there for all of us, be it laughter, be it action, be it impact, be it something that is possible. We as humans love to look for that brightness of future. So provide that. Cool. Couple of quick slides next. I'll just click on this. This is a pathway that this year at the Enactus World Cup that you're all invited to, and I'm going to give you the link to that, is passion, performance, purpose. So in the pathway of a really great story and a really great human transformation, it doesn't have to start with a problem. It doesn't have to start with, what problem am I fixing? What am I overcoming? That's true for some people. It's true for many of the professors. It's true for many companies. It doesn't have to be true for you. You can start with something that you are passionate about, because when you work in a world of problem solution, but you're not passionate about the problem, or you're not passionate about the solution, then so what? Start with something that makes your heart beat. It might be that first string of a guitar, piano key, or coding, or dancing, or spoken word, or performance, something that makes your heart beat and gets you going. That, once taken into a pathway of performance, and prototyping, and sharing, and pitching, becomes a moment when you transform your passion from performance into purpose. And that can be a life of purpose, or it could just be a moment of purpose. But just remember that perfect pathway of passion, performance, and purpose. Cool. We're always in motion. You can go to the next one there. Yep, we're always in motion. Newton, I love this guy. He's got all these laws of motion based in science. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. So when we tell a story, take people on a journey. Even when we're sleeping, our heart is still beating. We're still breathing. When we think we're still, we are in total motion. The earth is spinning at incredible speeds. We're rotating around the sun. The entire universe is in motion. So when we tell our story, we want to go from A to B to C, and it's never a straight line. That's where the story comes in. It's the curves, it's the cuts, it's the wrong turns, it's the path less taken. And so when I think about telling a story, it doesn't matter where you are in your story. It can be and should be the very beginning. That's totally cool. You don't have to have an end of your story. It can be a cliffhanger. So when I think about telling a story, there's a great storyteller. She's won a couple of Grammys and probably going to get an Academy Award. And I love this next quote. This is because I'm in love with my future. She didn't say the future. She said my future, her future. Can't wait to meet her. But I'm in love. Not with just anyone else. I just want to get to know myself. And that's the words and lyrics and music that comes from the one and only Billie Eilish. Cool. All right. On we go. We're going to turn it over to you. This is one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world for good. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Today, we have a small and mighty crew that we're about to share stories. Sometimes we have 70 on this call, as many as 700. It doesn't matter. It's the quality of the gathering and the fire in our belly that we share with others. Next. Cool. So when you tell your story, I want you to, again, think about what I asked you to think about. What was a time that you created something out of nothing? Something out of nothing. I'm going to tee up a kriti here in a moment. But sometimes, especially at Enactus and sometimes at the World Cup, we think about those big trophy moments and that big project. That's not what we're looking for. We're just looking for a small beginning of a story, a time when you took maybe nothing, low resources, maybe some trash on the beach, maybe some dirty water and turned it into clean water, maybe an idea that you crystallized and met with some friends and turned it into something. And maybe that story is just at the beginning. So when you get on mic, don't worry about those big, great, giant stories. Think about those small and mighty stories that are inside of your heart, your soul and your mind and your spirit. Okay, next. Cool. So this I enjoyed. I saw this sign recently. And sometimes when we tell a story, we use references. And this is a reference that's used often. Hey, we're all in the same boat. Yeah, we're all rowing together. We're all in the same boat. Well, this board says, nah, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. We're not all in the same boat. We're in the same storm. I mean, you can use that storm as a reference to COVID. You could use that storm as a reference to economic disparity. You could use that storm as Black Lives Matter. You could use that storm in voices of the world that are not in the same boat. As this sign says, hey, some have yachts, some have canoes, and some of us are drowning. We just don't know. So what? Just be kind and help when you can. So there are powerful references in our story that sometimes we just assume that everybody's in the same boat. But those can be trigger words where people suddenly stop listening to you. There is this word that happens in North America and it's spreading around the world. And it's when people end a story with this. How many of you have heard this? So I'm telling you the story and I'm going along, right? And all of my friends, well, they're all in the same boat, right? And people end their sentence with this word called right, because they're looking to bring the audience along. But if you're saying, man, that ain't always right, I'm not with you. No, that's not right. So you have to be mindful of those words that get slipped into our stories that people are not resonating with, or they're trigger words. Next. Cool. And then we're going to turn it over to you guys. This is a really important thought here, guys. Take a picture of this. You are not your emotions. You are the one who feels them. Now, earlier, I said, telling your story with emotion, a range of laughter, to fear, to sadness, to joy, even bliss. Transferring those emotions are really key. That's not who you are. And sometimes when we get overcome with things like fear or even stage fright, we can step away and go, that's not me. Those are emotions that I'm just in the moment. And sometimes when you stop and you absorb or observe those emotions as if it was something else, and it is, and you take a look at those emotions outside of yourself and go, whoa, that's fear hitting me, then you will stand stronger. Whoa, this is what joy and bliss feels like. I can share that. You are not your emotions. You are the one who feels them, okay? So we'll just do a quick review, and then I'm going to jump over to a few of my friends. Akriti is up there. Norman, good to see you, my brother. Awesome. South Africa in the house, represent. We have India, Brazil, and a few others. Amazing. So know your audience. Take them on an adventure. Number two, connect with emotion. You are not that emotion. You experience and feel those emotions. help bring your audience into understanding those emotions. Number 3, clever counts. If you can refer to data, you can refer to information, you can refer to something outside of yourself, super cool, do it. Positive impacts. Are you helping motivate people in your story? And it's your story. Number 5, it's you, your point of view. The only one we have is our point of view. So share it. It's amazing. People will respect you when you tell your story through your authentic self. And then, as I said, permissions are important. If you're going to tell a story and use somebody else's name, they should know about it. Or somebody else's music, they should know about it. Or somebody else's imagery, they need to know about it. And then, does this story take us to the end of a journey on something that feels like a sense of possibility, even when we're addressing something challenging and hard, like my friend Akriti, who challenges some of the big misnomers of the world, and then says, by sharing this information, can we be better? Can we learn more? Who can we become as human beings when we connect to each other? So at this moment, I'd love you to prepare your mind to share a story about a time when you shared something or created something out of what seemed like nothing, maybe through COVID, maybe to a time of great challenge, and you just had yourself, maybe little resources or lesson you have, and you created something out of nothing. So just to start off, I want to see if a few my guests are in the audience today. I don't know if I see Anurag. If you are here, just unmute yourself.
Hello.
There he is. Awesome, awesome. I'm going to go to you next. And first, I'm going to go to Akriti. And Akriti, who I had the pleasure of meeting just a few years ago, and I had the pleasure of introducing her to some pretty amazing people. Could you share, unmute Akriti? And your writing is spectacular. She's an amazing writer. I always want her to share it with the world and really publish and push out her stories, because they're really profound and important. Even though sometimes they're very local, they're very, very global, I find. They're very connected to all of our hearts deeply. So Kriti, I wanted to, first of all, ask you who you had a chance to connect with and how did that go? Say hello to Kriti, everybody. Hi, Kriti.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to start off by saying the only reason that I connected with two of the most inspiring people last year was because of the sort of disadvantage that we were put at because of the COVID situation. So last year during the Enactus World Cup, thanks to Terry, I got to speak with Marianne Pearl, who is one of the most inspiring writers out there. And I've been able to stay in touch with whatever work she's been doing since. And Fumzle, who's the executive general of UN Women. And, you know, looking at people in that power, you look at women who are doing that work, and it just inspires you because you're always looking to learn more and interact with people who've already, you know, come over the obstacles that you might face in future or you're facing right now. So that was one of the highlights of my year last year. But other than that, what was more important was the context that we were talking about. We were talking about this article that I wrote, which was called India's Daughter. It was based on a movie that had been made, a documentary that had been made regarding rape culture in India. There was a case and everything. So generally the idea of women's safety and what we can do in our lives to sort of help overcome so many of these issues that we face in terms of, you know, like we've got all of these feminism waves and everything, but how are we achieving those standards and those goals that we've set for ourselves? So how I started writing was very, you know, like I think it can be one of those story moments that Terry's talking about, because it was nothing. I thought I can't write. I thought I can't put two sentences together. I've not been very great at English all my life. So this was during the lockdown where I was thinking that, oh, I wrote something. I did a lot of research for an essay and all of this work that really connected with me, where I feel like another girl can relate to me no matter where in the world she is, because we share this common ground where we're always worried about something that, say, another person or a man doesn't have to worry about. So that got me thinking, and I thought, even if this is based in, say, my country, I got response from people who were reading it, like who were not based in India, were reading it outside, and they were talking about, yes, in this context, like I understand that you've written it, with whatever the story was in India, but similar things are happening all over the world, and this is exactly what we need to do. Where we need to talk about, we need to have the uncomfortable conversations rather than just selective outrages because an event occurs, and then you have a march, and then you have media outrage, and then it dies out. And that's the trend that we've been seeing regarding most catastrophes, most incidents that the world is facing. So I felt like just simply writing about it felt so cathartic to begin with, and then once you hear people talk about it, like once you start a conversation, that's what feels like, I know validity, like validation is a whole other thing, but I think that's what makes you feel like, okay, what I'm writing or what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling is worth being put out or worth being talked about. And that sense of validation, when I got when Marianne and Funzile talked about this, and they told me to keep going and told me that if it's my story, I have to tell it. I think that was one of those really inspiring moments that keep you going, even if like I've hit a low point, I'm stuck in a block, writer's block, I don't know what to do. I'll think of some moments like that. I'll think of, oh, I was really low at this time, and I started writing and came out of it, and that's what gets me going. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I'm gonna stop talking now, but thank you, Terry. It was a great opportunity.
So, Kriti, and it's just the beginning of your story. You are writing. You're published. You are moving on to expand your writing into additional publishings, and always exciting to when you share your work with me, and I have an opportunity to read and understand and then dialogue with you. And I think one of the key things that, if I may, what your story does is inspires important dialogue. And as you said, sometimes the uncomfortable conversations, and sometimes those uncomfortable conversations should exactly be uncomfortable, because if they're too comfortable, we get complacent or we move on. But when they're disruptive and uncomfortable, and we look at ourselves and say, where am I in that story? Am I doing something to contribute to the part of the story that is hurtful to others by doing nothing at all? Or am I contributing to the story in a way that the writer, Kriti, sees a world that is possible, mission possible? Kriti, clearly your work does number 7 on this list, mission possible. Can you quickly go through and say, tell me, how do you connect with audience? How do you take people on an adventure? Can you touch on each of these just briefly when you write?
Okay, so I think it's always, whenever I start something, with me, it's usually been, it will come from personal place or something that I've discovered writing or reading, just a random, or like a conversation that I had with someone, and it'll get me thinking about, oh, what next? So similar to that, I think the first ever pieces that I wrote last year was regarding sex education in India. Now, it's not, if you look at it, it's, our audience was India, but if you look at it in general, also sex education is a really important topic that, like, that's not discussed as much as it should be, and it is a part of those uncomfortable conversations that you have to have. So I started with this personal angle, and then I saw that if I write it like that, then my audience and then the people my age especially are going to connect with it. They're going to see that I'm not alone, and it's not just, I'm not the only one who feels uncomfortable talking about this. There's not, like, it's not just my home that I'm experiencing this sort of like sort of, I don't know, where a lot of families ignore certain topics, where they feel they're uncomfortable about it. So this happens. I've heard about it from a lot of people all over the world. So that's how it started. And that's how I felt like, okay, people will connect with it. And then sometimes I will put in a song lyric, like it could be like, I think the first one I put Eminem, and people came back to me, they're like, oh my god, you quoted Eminem in your article. And I was like, yeah, I just thought like this is something people must have heard for sure. And so just things like that which sort of keep people like, it's uncomfortable, it's not, it's an important topic, but if you put like things like that in it, then it keeps them going, and and at least like people talk about it. And emotionally, I'm always like, even if I'm writing a very serious or a very funny either. Whatever sort of like the article goes, I will tend to address something grave about it, wherein I think I'm going to stick with the sex education example, where I think the most important part was where if some important education is not imbibed and not like taught to people, then what are the effects of it in your life later on? And then you see that's the manifestation of harassment culture, that's the manifestation of all of these problems that we're facing in the world today. So little things that you start off or you ignore in your life, they can like build up and contribute to much bigger problems later in life. And these are things that a lot of us ignore. So if I'm able to like, these are things all of us know, but it's just like if I'm able to help you connect the dots even like a little bit, then it's like, okay, I've done my job. So that's how I feel like you guys kind of I don't know.
Thank you, Akriti. Your story provided an opportunity for you to sit with Marianne Pearl and Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka from South Africa, who's head of UN Women. Now, Marianne Pearl's story was her story, early story called A Mighty Heart, was a movie played by Angelina Jolie about a situation in Kabul, in Afghanistan, that's so relevant right now in our world. And then I think about Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka in South Africa, who worked through apartheid in the most challenging times. And then I see you, Akriti, with your story and how they are listening to you and how you inspire them. And so to think about, you never can really crush yourself with I'm only 20 or I'm only this or I'm just a new writer. There you were, inspiring some of the greatest experiences in the world. And so I encourage you, go, go, go. I am your biggest fan. Carry on. I just heard you go through all 7 of these steps of guidance. Of course, there are many that you added, but I listened to your story and you followed through all 7. Akriti, thank you for all you do and all you are.
Thank you so much.
There is a moment in your story that you had mentioned that you were intimidated about your ability to share your English with the world, and that's not your native tongue. Your native tongue is?
It's Hindi.
Speak to us and welcome us in Hindi.
You want me to speak to you in Hindi?
I do.
Oh, okay. So, घर पे मैं हिंदी में बात करती हूँ. I feel like some people here might understand what I'm saying. So it's kind of that when I moved to Delhi, I wasn't very fluent in English, and it's something like the language that I've struggled with. So when I started writing, I think that just sort of, because that's something that if I don't speak English at home, or if I'm not used to it, and it's something that only happens in certain instances where I meet certain people, so it becomes a little intimidating. But
so Akriti, at this moment, share one word in Hindi that we should all know. One word.
Oh my God, that's so scary. I don't know.
While you think about it,
I'll think about it, and because
I'm going to come back to you, because I'm going to now share a story with a young man named Anurag, who I think took something out of nothing at a time when we all were experiencing a storm that we continue to be in, that's taken on many different variances. Now, Anurag, I see that you have a different name up there, but please, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Can you see me? Hello?
I can see you very well. And
can you hear me?
I can hear you extremely well. And from the sounds of it, I would say that you're sitting somewhere in a very proper office, and perhaps in London, somewhere in the UK. I first heard Anurag's voice in an app called Clubhouse, and he enamored me. And I would like to share your story as Akriti finds that certain word in Hindi that you might actually have.
All right. First of all, I apologize for the shoddy video quality. And if you hear any sort of background noises, because it's raining cats and dogs at the moment out there. You see a different name on the screen because I'm using my friend's device, because I don't know why my device chose to fail me at a crucial moment. And yeah, I'm good. I'm exceedingly exuberant at the moment to hear Terry while, looking at him, because I always had this problem, trying to synchronize voice with face, and now when I can, I feel really happy. So
Well, I hope I didn't disappoint you, my good man.
never. Uh, and yeah, well, my story, actually, I have said this so many times because many people wanted to know about it, and I think it is very um, personal to me. But at the same time, I like to share it with people because if it can help them in any shape, way, or form, I think I'll be more than happy. And it started with, actually, I was a sports person, a professional sports person. I played a game which is quite popular in India and some of the other Commonwealth countries, and it is called cricket. And yes, I played professionally. I represented my state in 2 major national tournaments of under-19 cricket. And then, you know what happened? I had so many plans for 2020, but the thing that should not be named happened. I don't even want to name it right now. So the plans were, shattered, and I was like, what am I going to do now? For a person like me who goes out and enjoys with people, talks to people, I think I have a certain declivity, a penchant for talking to people. I cannot stop. I mean, when I start, I cannot stop. And so I was like, I felt really, really frustrated. I really have to do. I have to be productive in some way, because this was going absolutely crazy. That was insanity. That was lurking around my head and mind. So I thought, let's do something. Like as Akriti mentioned, my English was also not very good, and I was sort of an average student. I wouldn't say that I was like really pathetic at it, but at the same time, I wasn't really outstanding for that matter. So what I did, I was like, I'm gonna brush up my English, because I had this thing that I'm gonna continue with cricket, and there is this tricky thing. Whenever Indian cricketers or Pakistani cricketers perform really well in matches, they have to give their interview at the end of the match, like a sort of a presentation ceremony. And I always dreaded, what if I go there and they ask me something which I'm not able to reply to? That was like I would be dead at that moment. So I decided that I would brush up my English, and that with similar sort of story like Akriti, I was not able to put even one sentence together. And I'm talking about, do you know what time I'm talking about? Last year, around this time, not at this time, maybe 15 months ago. And then I was like, I'm gonna write, I'm gonna put into practice what I learned. I indited a poem which I recited to Terry some time ago, and it was about losing and how a loser would talk to himself. And then, yeah, as I said, I started writing. Then I joined an online community. It was for writers and poets. And there, you mentioned that moment when some conversations are uncomfortable. And I think it should be that way, because it teaches you something, some sort of improvement that you can bring in yourself. So I went there. I had many conversations which were absolutely uncomfortable, especially with gentlemen from Britain and US, because they were natives. And I mean, I could understand them. Sometimes I wouldn't be able to catch it, but most of the times I was able to understand them. But in my case, when I used to speak, I was like, I would speak and they would not understand the complete thing, and they would ask me constantly to repeat. And that's when I felt like I need to work on my pronunciation a little bit. And around the same time, I had this, I'm gonna reach that point where I talk about a moment of epiphany. I'm sure you are aware of this word. It's a very beautiful word, means a lot to me. So I had this moment. I was actually, I had this talent that I was able to mimic voices of many Bollywood actors, characters. Then I decided that I would, because I was learning English, I was watching English movies. I thought like I would do the same with English characters. Like I would try to mimic Professor Snape from Harry Potter. That's my favorite character, by the way. And I was able to actually. I will show you later on if you wish to listen to it. And maybe like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. And I was like, then when this moment happened, when I was the thing that I was talking about, epiphany, I was like, when I talk the way these characters talk, my pronunciation is, it automatically improves. And why can't I talk the way I am talking while doing those characters? And I was like, and there is this thing, when something is meant to happen, everything goes in some sort of a proper order. And everything was so serendipitous. I came across a movie called My Fair Lady. It's a very old movie. I don't know how I stumbled upon it. I am not one of those people who likes to watch like old classics and stuff. And I was lambasted my father many times because of this, because you don't appreciate good movies. And I was like, yeah, maybe I don't want to. But I watched this movie. It was released in 1964. It had a lovely Audrey Hepburn in it. And I was fascinated with this character called, what was his name? Professor Henry Higgins. He was a phonetic professor, and he taught this lady how to speak like a well-behaved English maid in very short amount of time. And I was like, that struck me in a way that nothing ever struck. It was unprecedented, definitely. I was like, I'm going to do it. I consulted one of my friends who did it, the same sort of thing, but he was like, actually, I did not like his, the way he talked to me about it. It was like, mate, listen to me. I tell you one thing, you're gonna take 3.5 years, exactly the amount of time I took. Because it takes practice, man. It takes practice. You have to read, you have to get into sync, think like a native, think in English, proper pronunciation, proper diction. I was like, okay, it's very good if you want to bullshit me. I'm gonna do it in 3 months, or I'm not gonna do it at all. And I was like very confident. And if I had, I wanted to do it. And there is this thing, there is this word. I keep going back to the etymology of it while explaining about it, because I think the word vocation has a very profound meaning. Vocation is the calling. I'm not sure if it's a Latin word or Greek word. I always get confused. But the meaning is the calling. The voices inside your head. They're not wrong always. They're not right always. But if it says that you're interested in certain thing, follow that thing, pursuit. Not pursuit of happiness, but happiness of pursuit. So if it tells you to follow a certain thing, that means you can never get bored of it. You will always feel energetic and try to do it. And then this journey, which I'm talking about, started. It started around Christmas. And I don't think it finished ever. It is never going to finish. Like I never going to stop being a student. So it's in similar way, it's never going to stop. But I think the way I can speak, the way you're listening to me right now speaking, I think I was able to achieve it in less than 4 months. 4 months, yes.
So
And,
I'm going to
yes.
ask you a question. I apologize to interrupt you. You said so many
No
gems
worries.
there. I want to make sure that I capture them. That moment of passion that I spoke about briefly is when you know you're onto something. You use the word vocation. And that's the
Yeah.
moment of realizing your passion is moving into purpose. And when it overcomes, you will feel it in your body. And my friend Deepak Chopra says, all time and space will disappear at that aha moment when you're onto something, which you called
Eureka moment.
You also referenced Epiphany in the Christian calendar. Epiphany happens on January 6th, the day I was born. And so oftentimes I'm very familiar with the frame of reference and very moved by having an epiphany or that aha moment, that spark when an idea is like, whoa, wait, stop, whoa, and time and space disappears and you invite people into that epiphany, into that vocation, into that moment. Your friend said you could make your transformation in about 3.5 years. You said, no way. You did it in about 3.5 months. Anurag, could you take us back 16 months ago and speak to us, if you can, in Anurag 16 months ago?
Yes. Before that, I would like to mention, yes, 6th of January, according to a Christian calendar, it's the day of Epiphany, as you mentioned. For me, it was 10 days ago, 26th of December, I suppose. Yes, I will try to. It is definitely going to be a bit exaggerated because I am completely out of that zone. A bit exaggerated. Maybe I can read what I see on my screen, 7 steps of guidance. So 16 months ago, I, as a person who has no knowledge of English movies, no knowledge of English language, how it is spoken by people outside the country, would pronounce the word something like this. 7 steps of guidance. Audience and adventure. Connect with emotion. Clever counts. Positive impact. What's your story? Question mark. Permissions are important. Mission possible.
So I think, Anurag, I want to point out a couple of things. You made a purposeful moment in your life to help be understood in a situation where people were asking you to repeat yourself. And yet your native tongue is beautiful. Your native tongue, is my view and understanding you is you're not dishonoring. You just chose to take on a language that happens to be predominant in the world at this moment, especially for a storyteller. And even those in Bollywood are engaging. And if I understand right, that doesn't dishonor your path. It doesn't erase anything. It doesn't rewrite your history. I believe from you that it actually honors that pathway. Am I wrong?
No, everything you said is absolutely correct. I have heard this thing. You're compromising with your identity. You're not sounding Indian. That means you want to westernize yourself. I'm not westernizing my thoughts. I'm not westernizing my values. I'll be the same person that I am. I look the same way. I'm not going to look white if I speak English in a way that white people speak. But I used to get depressed because of this thing that, you don't know how people receive it in a sort of the place where I live, this locality, nobody even utters a word of English. So the way they received it, it was a bit heartbreaking for me because I wanted to do something good. And when it did not come through that good as much as I expected it to be, it was a little heartbreaking. But actually, the fact is I'm not compromising with my identity. I still can speak Hindi the way I speak. There is no sort of effect of English when I speak Hindi, and in similar way, there is no Hindi when I speak English. That's the distinction that I always wanted to make. And I'm happy that I can do it. And people are going to speak, and they're going to question you every single moment. I think when I chose to do this, I had this in the back of my mind that I will face questions, and I have answers ready for that. And by the way I speak in English and the vocabulary that I use, I think it is 10 times better when I speak Hindi.
Interesting. So maybe it helped provide clarity both ways. There's something I want to point out here is I've been part of something for a long time. We refer to it as the ethnosphere. Languages are disappearing at alarming rates around the world. And so when we talk about preserving and we talk about guarding wisdom, when a language dies in the world, so with it goes its elders and in the wisdom of its elders, the medicines of the Amazon, the truths of time not captured by written word that was written by a few versus the many. So when we think about languages disappearing and dissipating, and understanding that the cliques of Namibia in the San community, and how critically and important all of those nuances and all of those meanings, and being able to translate that story, not to erase our past, but to honor those words and those thoughts and that wisdom. And so for that, I thank you for sharing that story. I believe that you have a system for those that you wishes to follow your pathway to help articulate your story, but never ever forget the shoulders that we stand upon in our past. So Anurag, I thank you kindly, and maybe I'll ask you and Akriti maybe to form that word in Hindi, or you maybe each have a thought that we could learn in honor in honor of your native tongue. Is there a word or thought that comes to your mind? Maybe it's a short sentence that we could all learn together. Akriti, did something come to mind?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that India has always been a land, a country that happily welcomes people from all around the world. So I'm going to teach you a line which means you are welcome in our place. And I mean, it is hard to explain because what I am doing is the raw translation of the Hindi sentence. But I mean, it is, yes, it has the same essence, but the meaning is more profound, I suppose. And maybe because I speak Hindi, that is my first language, I have a bit of bias. So yeah, so I'm going to teach you a very simple sentence. It is nothing. I mean, it is nothing for you, I suppose, Terry. It is going to be absolutely easy. And it is, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
आपका बहुत बहुत
स्वागत है.
स्वागत है.
Yes.
बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. I want to, oftentimes I want to see the words, but that doesn't always help because you want that phonetic reinforcement. And there's a fear that I'm not going to say it right, or I'm going to dishonor you by attempting to say it. But give it to us one more time, please.
Yes. Well, you shouldn't be, skeptical for that reason, because let me tell you, Hindi is a very flexible language. We can incorporate, just think of this. Maybe you forget a word which you want to put in that sentence, but you know how, or what is the English counterpart of it. So you can incorporate that easily and nobody would mind, because it is a flexible language. It often goes bilingual, so no problem at all. And the sentence is, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
स्वागत है.
Yeah.
And when you land on that last one and you get that, then it's repeated for you in the beginning, which is beautiful. There was only 15 to 20 years ago a belief that the #1 language on planet Earth would be Mandarin Chinese because of the rapid growth of Chinese population. And then it was believed that it would be Spanish. And then the Chinese then learned English, and that shifted it back to English. And then there was some notion that it would be even Hindi, but because of the rapid growth of the internet and English, and that doesn't make English correct, if you will, it just becomes a global language. And so I wanted to talk about another country that has 11 official languages. It is a place that I have had a chance to frequent and experience, but also I have a friend who sings and speaks in Sanskrit, which is amazing. One of the oldest languages that we can find, and the tones that emulate from nasal to throat to chest resonate with so many people in the world, because it comes at the root. There's these beautiful ohms and beautiful sounds that resonate, that help translate and transfer to so many humans around the world, just as Hindi does. Akriti, did you come to think of your sentence or word?
I was thinking of the word which literally means story, because I kept thinking, if I'm thinking in Hindi, then I was thinking what I would do. And I think story in Hindi is kahani. That's kahani, like Tahani from The Good Place. So it's just like, that's what's been going inside my head. So I didn't want to go too deep or anything, but I'm just going to be like, this is what everyone should know, because we're doing storytelling here.
Nice.
So
Kahani.
Yeah. Kahani, yeah.
Kahani. I can get my head wrapped around that. Thank you kindly, both of you. And it's a pleasure for you to meet each other in Anurag. There's so much more to your story I'd love to be able to share. And I think we'll formulate a group for those who want to carry on and continue to grow this conversation, how we can best share stories effectively around the world. And I often think in terms of filmmaking and adding pictures, but Anurag, you and I met through Clubhouse, through the oldest of languages, and that's just, spoken word, and how amazing it is to listen to a great story and close your eyes and have a perfect picture, perfect view. There is a magical place on the planet that I've had a chance to spend a lot of time. I consider it a second home. It has 11 official languages by decree of government, but many, many, many more. And the diaspora that flows in and out of this magical place is as visceral as the place itself, full of wild animals and stories and music and arts and tempestuous storms and waves and mountains and fields, the roar of lions, the big five, and home to a young man named Norman. And he is with us today. How's it, Norman? You need to unmute, and there he is. And Anurag, listen to Norman's voice, because you're going to want to dial up this amazing blend of a new recipe from South Africa called Norman.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me now?
Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, as Terry mentioned, my name is Norman, and I come from the country of South Africa. And yes, 11 official languages, a lot of story to tell, a lot of history that has happened, and a lot of great culture too, So I'm really excited, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to actually be part of this and hear everybody's stories and hear everybody's experiences of like where they come from, everything that they've experienced and how they were able to overcome some of those, and how they took that as a portion of their story too. I think personally too, if I was to share something, I think every day the decisions that you make as people, they are obviously a contribution to our story, but it's also about what are we taking from that story in order to move forward as well. So yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I think when me and Terry met, we were actually in Boulder, and I was at the time working on a water project, and I was sort of like connecting the dots to help my community like gain access to water as well. It's like the concept that you shared before, and that also challenged me in a way to actually redo the way I used to tell stories before. You come from a place and you want to give your story emotions and share every detail from it, but it's also like a structured way of saying it without having it lose its content and the special effects of it. So yes, yeah, I think my personal story is just basically saying when I was a kid or a child, I grew up in a very sort of secluded. I grew up in the northeast of South Africa in a province called Mpumalanga, and then from there you find Nelspruit, and then inside Nelspruit is the Kruger National Park. I don't know if everybody know about it, but it's a really like a great tourist attraction. And I grew up around that area, and I had a lot of like good memories and a lot of stories to tell, from my own point of view and from other people's point of view. And then from there, I realized that although there's a lot of things that are going on around us, but there's also not a lot of in terms of like what the world expects from a young person or from a person growing up, because you grow up in this place and it's secluded, and all you know is everything that's around you. You don't know everything outside of the world. And I myself had to read books and get informed about a lot of stuff so that I can personally develop as a person, and also understand what the world needs in order to make something out of nothing. So yeah, I grew up there, and then in high school and in primary school, I used to write a lot of spoken word poetry, perform for people, and it was just my way of gaining confidence and just being able to put myself out there for people to to see what I can do. And then from there, I went to high school and I continued spoken word poetry. I started to read more. I started to write my own stories as well, in terms of essays and short stories and plays and everything. But mostly was just trying to show the world how I view the world from my point of view, from the lenses of my view, and just giving them a certain sort of piece of playful mindedness to say, as much as as much as you have a lot of things that are going on in your life, there's also just a lot of joy that you can actually find from the next person that's sitting next to you, or from the environment that you grew up in, or from the people that you meet in your life journey. So yeah, and then after high school, I went to college, and then I was part of Enactus at some point, and then I also got a chance to actually meet more people and go into other communities as well. And see how they live their life and how they actually share their stories as well, in the form of their outfit or their storytelling, be it it's music or poetry or writing. So it was just elders sitting you down and just giving you a little bit of some wisdom. So yeah, and then from Enactus, obviously I went to Boulder, and that was a mini break from college, and then I met Tori, and I was working on an NPO then, and then from there I was also in a way challenged to also tell my story, but in a different perspective as well, because from there it was more of a business side of connecting the emotions in a very structured way, but without actually what do you call it? Without actually messing up the effect of it. So yes, I think from there, so everything is just in who I am right now as a young person. I'm still on a journey of trying to make something out of nothing. I'm still in a journey of sharing more of my story, and I'm also still in a journey of trying to make people see the world from my view, and just make people realize that life is not really a tragedy that people have to get by. There's always something that has to make you interesting as a person. There's always something that has to make you special in that kind of way, in your story, in the way you live life, and the way you connect to the people around you as well. So yeah, I don't know if that's my sort of short input. And
Thank you, Norman. And I want to welcome our audience who is listening to this recording, because it's so important that not everybody around the world has the same time reserve. So I want to welcome the audience and tell you that there's a spectacular view of everybody sharing stories. And Norman from South Africa, and his profile picture has a giant smile, man. It's a smile that says the whole story. Now, here's the funny thing is, I didn't have the opportunity to meet Norman in South Africa, a place that I frequent a lot. But Norman knows Elijah, and we had a rare occasion in KwaZulu-Natal, lovingly referred to as KZN in South Africa, the more mountainous areas of South Africa, to experience a rare snow. But you can usually only in South Africa experience that snow if you climb very high to the mountaintop. But it didn't take very long for Norman to fly into Colorado in January to experience his first big flake snowstorm. And so you will see it on his profile picture with a big smile. And it was really a pleasure to see you at that moment, to experience real cold in South Africa in our northern hemisphere summer. In July, it's quite cold. They will tell you it's very cold if you're from South Africa. But for those of us who know deep cold, it's no problem. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's mild. Thank you Thank you, thank you, thank you, Norman. I really I appreciate your share. I really appreciate the audience who will be listening to us as we drop this recording and continue our storytelling session and how we can best learn from each other and share these stories and then weave our stories together in a way that once heard somebody else's story forever affects ours. And let that be so true. Let that be so true. So thank you. And I want to share with them, I want Emily to share some of the things that are coming up next, and most importantly, the next. We can skip the slide about the dashboard, but I'll provide that for anybody who wants that dashboard to help share your story into a business story and how to get investment. It's an important one, as Norman alluded to. But if you'd be so kind, Emily, to share the next and what we could do right now to register at the Enactus World Cup.
Yes, and Terry, can you see it? I think it's up.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna let you walk us through that, please, kindly, Emily.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So first and foremost, as Terry mentioned, Enactus World Cup registration is open. So we would love for you to head over to enactus.org/World Cup, register there for all of the fun we have planned for the 14th through 21st of October, all virtual. So you can be anywhere in the world to attend. We would love to see you there. And then we have a couple of more sessions coming up before then. We have 2 more focused on storytelling specifically here in September. And then on October 1st, we will be hosting our How to Win the Race session, which is specifically for Enactus teams interested in joining one of our Enactus races this coming year. But of course, everyone is always welcome to attend. I'm sure we'll be talking more about storytelling and how to amplify your impact and get your story out there. So we hope to see you at one or all of these sessions.
Thank you, Emily. It's enactus.org/World Cup. And more than yourself registering, invite all of your friends because they will be deeply inspired. We have many, many special guests and many, many special moments, as Akriti had outlined, some spontaneous moments, some calculated moments, and many moments that will provide the epiphany, the aha moment that will move passion on purpose. So we thank you. Join us on 15 September. I think it'll be 1 hour later. Yes.
Actually, it'll be at the same time. All of these following sessions, yeah, same time.
Okay. Super cool. So for your part of the world, please invite your friends. They definitely don't have to be part of Enactus, but you can attract them to Enactus. I thank you for your attendance today. We're in the encore moment of the story when we went into overtime, but I thank you for hanging out. And please, invite others to 15 September. We'll have a special guest in storytelling. I'm very excited to bring 2 special guests on our next 15 of September, just a week away, and then 23 September, how to take your impact further, and then 1 October has to do with our spectacular races. We'll announce some new ones, but it's opportunity to support our oceans, opportunity to rethink plastic, opportunity to take climate action, and opportunity to support, engage, and be part of Food for the Planet. It's all coming up this month, and then next month, 14 to 21 October, the Enactus World Cup, and you're all welcome. You'll have a front row seat. Thank you kindly, everybody. It's really namaste is one of those words that doesn't have a good English translation, but my best way to think about it in English is my heart connected to yours, and my heart is open to yours. And so for that, namaste. Thank you. I'm deeply grateful.
Thanks,
Thank you guys for
everyone.
this. It was amazing hearing your stories.